Hi everyone, and welcome back to Advancing with Watercolor. I'm Gary Tucker. This week we're going to continue our study of a tonal scale and how it can help us in creating specific types of light, help us in establishing a center of interest and leading our audience through the painting, and also help to keep us out of trouble. We use a higher key in this case to depict the morning light, relying on some bright midtones, some white of the paper, some lighter tones, and a very few darks to help really portray that low light that we enjoy in the morning.
Yeah, we'll do light, mid, dark, and a little composition that shows the scene at Gloucester. Very complex on first glance. We're going to try to find a strategy to minimize the complexity. I've included a link to a PDF file in the description below, which contains a little more information on today's subject and the idea of working with tonal values to achieve a specific mood or light in your painting. Lying flat on the water, we're kind of seeing the village of Gloucester at a distance. All right, I'm picking up on a couple key items here. You notice that I'm repeating this shape of the pitched roof. I see it in a couple places, and combining that with some other repeated shapes of the hull of a boat, for example. Here and there we see some darks in the pier. Back here, some darks in the pier. Another rooftop here. Another smaller one up here. You get the idea. We're kind of repeating that as a theme. Repeating the shape of the boat as a theme. Everything else, and yes, we will do some windows as a repeated theme as well. Some dark areas behind. Nice, beautiful long reflections. Also giving us a bit of a theme. This week, if you haven't noticed already, it's about a theme, establishing a theme. We can think about that visually. We can also think about it, in music. What would be a theme, like the refrain in a song would be an example. In poetry, a repeated line. So we're doing a lot of repeats here. We see also, look at those buoys. They offer another chance for a repeated theme. Looking for some interesting up and downs here. That will, I kind of like this gradual slope to the sea. This gradual build out of boats coming forward. Very slight because we're very close to the level on the water, right? All right. Let's think about our values for a moment. Last week we did a scene that depicted a dark or a low key. Today we're going to paint with a high key. So we'll be able to have an idea of both of these, and hopefully they become something that we identify in our subject straight away. We come up to the subject and we see it and we say, hey, that's a high key painting. I think I know what to do. Well, that's a low key painting. I know what I need to do. Let's start by just placing some swatches of color. We'll look at that high key, and I see most of this painting made up by high notes. High notes, a few midtones, almost no real darks. My high notes are going to be about like this, and I'm including the white in these high notes. My darks are going to be of course, a darker strength. They're going to be about like this. Most of the painting going to be made up of these two colors. There might be an occasion to put something darker still, but not so many of that variety. So when we look at it, we see just so many different interesting shapes, variety of shapes. Let's use this whole bright area as one shape to get started. And maybe we even extend that into the sky and to the water initially. Or we account for that in our midtone. You can tell I'm still a little undecided myself, but I'm going to try and bring this idea of bright tones throughout in my main subject. And let's start with some water. Let's start with a big brush so we don't have the temptation to get bitsy. I'm leaving, a few lights through there. And I'll take a little bit of color. Using my sepia, warm sepia. I have a natural sepia, which is a little bluer, and I have a warm sepia. While that's wet, I'll introduce a few well-placed or not. Let's just put in some color signifying this or that. And we want it to kind of spread out. Again, I don't want to get too light too dark at this stage. I want to have a lot of lights, some whites. I'm not identifying anything in particular at this stage. And I'm even going to carry that down into the water. Will be really simplistic, almost a two-tone painting. Can we do a graded wash here? Yes, we can. And we're going to paint it very vertically. Same value. Don't worry about cutting around anything at this point. Just cover. Now let's be a little experimental. Let's put some darks towards the back with a small brush, just out of curiosity to see, if we can blend them at this stage, what they look like. A couple well-placed darks to show off the boats, perhaps. And let's drag them down. That's the idea. Even drag them up. How about in the sky? Sky also a very light tone. Let's do that. Again, a lot of water. Bringing it right down to the buildings that I've drawn. Look at that, some whites are appearing. Okay, let's start to, while this is wet, we have an opportunity. I want to use some soft edges. I'm going to go in there with my mid-strength color, using this larger brush, and start to create the trees behind. See if we can isolate some of those shapes. Some of those peaked roofs. Looking for patterns. That's what I'm doing right now, is looking for patterns. Repeated shapes. And I'm starting to pick them up in the painting itself and moving away a little bit from the image. I'm comfortable doing that. Picking up, you see these nice peaked shapes. Flat shapes, peaked shapes. We can even draw a mast through here. All right. Okay. Well, now we got to start to put a little something in our lower section to give us a feeling of boats. But so far we haven't really done anything dark. We've stayed pretty much in the mid-range, and then we'll continue that. Let's get this nice hard edge here. And I want to get some of that nice pier happening. There's a pier back here, coming across like this. Strong bottom to the boat. And then we'll just kind of continue this line back here as well. We run into another boat. These are all working boats. Let's just make some random marks back here. Flat where we hit the water. We want that calm, hard, flat edge where we hit the water. Now we can start to see our profile of our city kind of popping out. That boat's really coming out nicely. I mean, coming towards us in a positive way. Let's go into the water. I think we can get deeper in the water and in the sky. Make that really come alive. So the question is how to communicate the surface of the water and communicate the depth that we feel. A graded wash is most reliable to do that. Let's give that a try. I'm going to wet this whole lower section with this big wide brush, trying to keep my brush size really large in this first go here. And let's add color to that throughout. We can choose a few spots to leave white or bright. Start to make it glow back there by getting darker towards the bottom in a graded fashion. Let's go even darker. Good. And we do the same in the sky. When we're ready to move out, Painting reflections. Had a lot of requests for painting reflections. This is one way. Vertical. Here and there we have a buoy. Can lift it out with a nail or a little piece of paper, or even a combination of brush and paper while it's still wet. Have to be careful not to put too much water into this. This buoy is being eliminated. This is what happens when you scratch the paper in the wrong time. Okay. Let's move into that sky. And we're going to do a little bit of gradient back there, but not much. Same time, we'll be able to soften the trees. That's about right. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush now. Start to do some details. These details hopefully will make, I think that's going to be there. We'll see if we can do something at the end. Details. So details mean taking a little bit of stronger paint, thicker paint, and starting to bring a focus to the area we want it to be. Trim on the boat, for example. Or some depth back here could be good too. These marks also should be patterns or repeated shapes. Repeated, but repeated with variation, not just one shape of it repeating after another like you would see in a fence, but with some variation. I'm going to put some, register some tiny darks here. A little detail in this area. And then start to move across. little tiny darks, lines, shadows, windows, repeated shapes. That I want to pull down, but I'm going to wait just a bit to do that. Windows, peaked roofs, peaked roof, shadows, more windows. That's how we create the little floating village. Sleepy town of Gloucester. Sometimes we don't even really need to know what it is we're painting, just think about the shape. That means we're kind of working abstractly. And that's where patterns can be helpful. Repeated shapes, getting bigger, larger, modifying that shape slightly. Okay. Well, I need to return to the water once again. I don't need to, but I'm going to. See this jagged edge here? We can smooth that out. We can smooth that out. smooth this out as well. Get a little more luminosity to the reflections. Especially along the periphery, it's a good idea. All right, still darker up above though, isn't it? Let's go once more. Wet the sky, just water. I guess this is a good exercise because it's alerting us to some things that we will need to be aware of more in the next painting. Then let's take a smaller brush and build in those darks. Something like this. Could this have been done in the first stage? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's probably going to look a lot better if we get it done in the first stage. I was shy. I was hesitant. I'm not feeling that hesitancy anymore. I'm feeling sort of a impatience now. But I'm also feeling a sort of, confidence too. I feel like I know now what I need to do to bring that village out a little more. Bring the sunlight. There's just no way to make it feel bright unless you go very dark. So we're still painting in the mid-value range. We haven't really gotten super dark. Finally, the light is coming out. I'm going to go once more into the water as well. I believe you can see what I'm focusing on are those white boats, some of the reflections. Okay, time for some strong, intense darks. These are really minimal, very little water with the paint. And we need to give a little consideration where we use this because they're really going to pull the eye. So we don't want to put them everywhere. And if they're next to a white, it's going to become very, very attractive, so I'm trying to strategize, putting them next to this boat, for example, strong darks. This boat as well, especially through here. It's almost too much though. Too strong. Soften it out a little. Okay. The only thing I might do is to put in some whites. And I have some Jaune Brilliant, a yellowish white. That should work well for this particular piece. So we'll just have to mix a little yellow with the white. So if you don't have Jaune Brilliant, it's okay. Just take a little bit of white color, mix it in with some of the burnt sienna that you have, tiny bit of water. We don't use a lot of this. We don't need a lot of this. But for example, I lost this white. Let's put a bit of that here. On the top of that boat. Or if we want a mast from a boat. Too thick. Any place that we kind of lost a white that we wanted to keep, it's pretty easy to go back in and add a little bit of this. Becoming a trawler. And so we can use it for our buoys, which we've washed away. Let's put one in the dark here. Drag it down. Smaller one up here. Drag it down. I think it's good to put them nearby our center of interest. And I might put a little flat color through here. I like to do this especially on these studies, so I can be reminded in the next painting what I need to do differently. A high key painting. Most of our values are residing in this area. I include the water and the sky, right? A few well-placed darks, very few strong darks. Those have to be kind of thoughtfully applied. the sky shouldn't be dark. It's better. The chimney. Lots of fun. So we can still see those repeated shapes. I think we could add a few more windows and about the thin line coming across. I don't think that helps so much. Sometimes a little line gives a hint of the surface. We do see some ripples, but I don't want to paint all those ripples. Good. Sleepy harbor. Sleepy morning harbor in Gloucester. Nothing but the boats and the sound of waves.